Hello, Pulp Hounds. So, yeah, been doing this for about a year now. I've had my channel longer just to watch videos on and that. But actual horror book blurbs been a year. And it's been brilliant. Largely down to you lot. But before we get into the video, let's have a quick word from today's sponsor.
In your colourful Daily Mirror this week, TV's sexiest star reveals why he's pulling the plug on his role in Britain's hottest comedy show. Peter Howitt tells it all, what made him mad, why Bread should get the chop, and how he has no time for girls. The real Joey and Bread. Get your slice of the action only in the Daily Mirror.
I don't understand. It's like, right, we've got one of the guys from Bread. I never really liked Bread. I was always more of a Young Ones or Alexi Sale kind of guy. Like, so we need a slice of bread in it, but it needs to be sexy. How can we make it sexy? Let's have a woman in a bath. Brilliant. Why has she got bread in the bath? Maybe she's feeding a duck. I love it how she pulls the plug out at the start of the advert as well when they say, pulls the plug. Genius, just like literal translation of what's being said. Love it. So, I started this channel a year ago, and like, I must admit, when I started it, I had thoughts of clicks and likes and ad revenue and all the things, and that's not something that's necessarily transpired. But I'm not that fussed about it, in all honesty. It'd be nice if I could have ads on my channel and make an extra few quid with which to buy books. That'd be cool. But it's like, you lot, every comment and like and view and everything, every little ounce of passion that you guys have got for like ridiculous old trashy horror paperbacks drives me on. It really does, and I genuinely appreciate all your wonderful input. I do get a little bit behind replying to comments and stuff. I can only get on comments on my iPad, and I use my iPad for work, so when I get in from work, I quite like to not do anything on my iPad, and I watch YouTube. I love watching YouTube. It's like public access television, but like huge. It's fabulous. Better than the BBC. It just shows that like normal people that are passionate about something are better and more interesting than any expert that's on the telly. But yeah, I watch YouTube on me on a console on my telly, and I can't get. I hate it like that. You can't get onto comments and extra bits and stuff. So that's why sometimes I get a little bit behind with me replying to comments and stuff. I do apologise, but I genuinely appreciate it. And even if there were like just 10 of us, just 10 of you watching like my videos and we were chatting about it, that would be enough to drive me on to kind of have a look on my bookshelves and grab something and talk about it. So thank you, you lot. Genuinely, I love doing this. So let's get on to some of the questions that you wonderful folks have left me. I've got them written down, and they're in no particular order. So James Simpson has asked for like recommendations for a beginner, someone just getting into collecting this ridiculous nonsense. And it's quite difficult to just kind of give you tips, because your collection, my collection's grown really steadily over time. But there are a few things that I would say to someone kicking off. It's difficult to recommend authors because I love Guy N. Smith. A lot of people don't like Guy N. Smith. I love Ramsey Campbell. A lot of people don't like Ramsey Campbell. So I would say, rather than me recommend an author, I would recommend that you get something cheap that looks fun. And just read a few different authors. Don't buy like 4 or 5 books by Guy N. Smith. Buy 4 or 5 books by different authors. So get on eBay and Amazon and other. If you just Google places to buy second-hand books in whatever country you're in, there's sites like World of Books and even Music Magpie, ones like that pay you like a fraction of a pence for your books. They do have old paperbacks and stuff like that. And I do that pretty much. It's almost every evening. Just for 20 minutes, half an hour, or every other evening. And I put an LP on and get a cup of tea and just browse. And always look at what's been most recently listed on either eBay or Amazon or booksellers' inventories. And eventually you'll find booksellers that do a lot of interesting stuff with old paperbacks. You know, if you find an eBay seller that has a lot of old paperbacks, it might just be somebody that's bought a bunch at a car boot sale and reselling them. That's cool. But if it's all they have, maybe message them and say, have you got a website or an e-catalogue that I can have a look at? Here's my email address. Every time your new book list comes out, send it through. And don't leave it, because there are so many people like me. I am obsessed with collecting these ridiculous paperbacks. And there's a lot of people like me out there that are obsessed. And as soon as we get that book list, we pore over it and email them straight back. I do it on my lunch at work. If I've got an email in the morning for like, hey, here's my new book list. Right, I need a break, and yeah, I'm having that. And all the best stuff does go quite quickly. And also, don't judge a book by its cover. That's not like a moral lesson. There's so many old paperbacks from the 70s and 80s that the cover will suggest it's some gore monster fest, and it's not necessarily that. And even the back cover blurb might say, this is the most intense horror experience you have ever had. It's gore soaked and insane. And you read it and it really isn't. But that was a way of selling books. We've kind of discussed that before. So don't expect what's on the cover to reflect the content of the book. And I think sometimes it's easy to kind of go, look at that monster, this is going to be awesome. And the monster isn't really in the book. And you end up reading it and going, well, that was rubbish, that monster wasn't in. But if you'd have read it without thinking about that monster, you'd probably gone, actually, that's a really great book. So don't judge a book by its cover. And ask round, talk to people. I do that with books, records. I collect old video game stuff. I collect old 1980s Citadel War Games figures. And I just mention it to people. I don't bang on about it because I think they get very bored. But there's been quite a few times where people have said, oh, I've got a box of books in the cupboard. Do you want to have a look through it? And there might be one or two in there, but or whatever you collect, that's a good idea, whatever you collect, I think. So do mention to people, you know, if you've got any old horror books, just let me have a little look through. Morris D, hello Morris, thank you for all the comments. Has asked about what classic monster movie memorabilia I've got that's kind of like my favourites, and there's three main things that just make me so happy to own. The first one, I think it's actually appeared in some videos, is my Vincent Price Shrunken Head Apple Sculpture Kit. It never came with feet. It was never meant to. I've had this years. I got it from America when the pound was strong enough to buy things abroad. That's in the past now. And it's like this container that you fit over a lamp, an old-fashioned bulb, because modern bulbs don't get hot enough, and it gradually shrinks your apple and makes it all wrinkly, and then you get like hair and stuff to put on it, and you can turn it into lovely shrunken heads. I've also got a set of so they were made in the 60s by Marks, and then reissued in the 80s It's a set of like Universal monster figures. So there's the Phantom, and they were reissued as glow-in-the-dark toys in the 80s. That's the Mummy. But the glow-in-the-dark stuff was slightly toxic. That's the Wolfman. They are a little bit old and battle-scarred. He's missing a couple of fingers, bless him. We've got a Frankenstein. And it's more of a Glenn Strange face than a Karloff face, I think. We've got Quasimodo. I love Charles Lawton as Quasimodo. My favourite out of all of them, we've got the creature from the Black Lagoon. And I've debated so many times whether or not I should paint these, because I'm not bad at painting models and miniatures. I do it a lot for fun. But I just love the kind of whole glow-in-the-dark thing. But yeah, the glow-in-the-dark stuff was toxic. And people bought these for kids, and the kids put things in their mouths, and then the kids got sick and they all got withdrawn. So yeah, that was another set that I bought from America quite a few years ago. And then another bit of memorabilia I absolutely love is An Evening with Boris Karloff and Friends. It's Boris Karloff talking about audio clips from Universal Monsters movies. I thought that was like the Aurora model kit Frankenstein, but it's not, I don't think, because it does say on the back of the sleeve, cover art and concept by Don Post, who was a masks. Don Post made masks, didn't he? So I think that's like just probably from the catalogue. I'm sure that'll be in the back pages of either Eerie or Creepy magazine. Susan Sebest asked, what are my favourite lesser-known ghost movies? And this has been a really difficult one. I think one of the best ghost movies I've seen that people don't really seem to know about. You see, a lot of my favourite ghost movies people know about. So, The Legend of Hell House, I adore. The Original Haunting, The Innocents. Ones like that I absolutely love. And then I think my favourite ghost movie is Casper. No, not Casper. Is The Fog, the John Carpenter movie. Ghost pirates with red eyes coming to mash you up. Oh! And of course, I love a lot of the Japanese ones, like the little kid from The Grudge. That's just... I like it when it's not... I love The Fog. The ghost pirates are coming to cut you up. But I like it's just when it's like a little kid sat at the top of your stairs just looking at you. Because that's... For me, that's genuinely creepier. But I think one of the best ones that a lot of my friends didn't... It kind of passed them by, was Oculus. About Haunted Mirror. That I thoroughly enjoyed, and it messed with my head completely. I was all over the shop trying to figure out what the hell was going on, but it disturbed me, and I absolutely loved it. So a couple of people have asked me about modern writers. I'll take my glasses off, then I can see. I've got like a little window of like... so if it's here, I need my reading glasses on. If it's anything further away than like that, I need my distance glasses on. I've got this little window of opportunity in the middle where I can see things and I don't need glasses for. So a couple of people have asked me about more modern stuff. So David Thomas asked me if I read modern writers. The lovely Mark Morris asked me what my favourite horror novel published after 2000 is. I do read modern stuff. Sometimes it's easy to get stuck in this little like loop of just old paperbacks and my old ghost anthologies and stuff. And it made me think about James's question about where do you start with all this kind of retro horror book stuff. And I feel a little bit like that sometimes about modern horror stuff. I do like Alex the Bookybus because I like her recommendations. I think we've got similar tastes. So I love watching other YouTubers that kind of specialise in, hey, this has just come out and it looks ace, because that's where I got a lot of my ideas from. It's kind of weird that Mark asked that question, because I do really like Mark's stuff, so I thought It Sustains was a brilliant novel. Dark Matter by Michelle Paver, I thought that was a beautiful ghost story. But I have to say, I think my favourite modern writer is Adam Neville. I love things that just unsettle me, that make me feel uncomfortable and upset and alone and like a frightened child. As much as I love just like the gore of trashy pulp, I love horror that manages to tap into something, and horror's really personal. I mean, horror's everything from when some of my friends are like, oh, we're off to see a horror movie at the cinema. What you have to see? I don't know, but it'll be scary. And they jump at a couple of jump scares and they come out going, oh, that was amazing. And films like that, I kind of get a bit frustrated with. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because if you love that, that's genius. But maybe you get a bit desensitized to horror. And it's that like downward spiral. And as you kind of outgrow those a little bit, you need something that's going to tap into like a primal childhood upsetting experience. And Adam Neville kind of grabs my brain and kind of goes, do you remember all those times as a kid when terror just gripped you? Well, this is how you're going to feel. So I hope that answers both questions. And I think my favourite horror novel that unsettled me the most, that's been published since the year 2000. Do you know, I'd be hard pressed to pick. They're both Adam Neville books, and it's either The Ritual or Apartment 16. They both put me on edge, which it's so wonderful when it's just words on paper and it unsettles your brain just reading it. William Ramskill asked what my favourite bookshop is, and that's another tricky one. There's a couple of bookshops I have beautiful memories of that have fallen by the wayside, like Leo Books in Wakefield, which was just a house that was just stacked floor to ceiling with books, and each room had a different theme. So the upstairs toilet was just like vintage sci-fi, but it wasn't like, look at these lovely vintage sci-fi books. It was just piled up. We just had to dig. But that's long gone. So I've kind of got three. I had to think. I've got three that I adore, but one just is just slightly more magical for me. So I love Westgate End Books in Wakefield. It's run by my friend Tim, who is also a wonderful artist. And it's kind of like a weird curated space where he's got a lot of books. And he seems to have a lot of lovely like 60s and 70s paperbacks and first editions and stuff. And then there's his own art. And then there's his own collection of like vintage plastic religious tat and 50s and 60s toys. And it all meshes together so beautifully in this tiny little bookshop where it's almost like just going in is kind of like a psychedelic experience. It's genius. And then there's also Barter Books at Alnwick, which for those of you that don't know, it's a huge railway station, a big old railway station that they've turned into a bookshop. And I love going there. And you've got to go with people that love books or go on your own, because I find I can spend a day in there just literally just looking at everything. It's so fabulous. And I always come away with something really exciting that I wasn't expecting from there. But I think my favourite bookshop that I've ever been to is Minstergate Books in York, just near the Minster, down one of the little narrow streets. And that street, centuries ago, was where all the bookbinders and booksellers were. And Minstergate Books is really narrow but very tall, and you go in the basement, and they've got such an amazing and expensive range of like vintage, antiquarian, first editions and stuff. Largely, they've got an amazing like folklore and Arthurian legend section, and I always think York is a little bit of a magical city. If you live there, or you're there all the time, well, that's where you got to do your shopping. It probably isn't, but you know, I live in like grimy South Yorkshire inner city, so the history of York and the ghosts and the magic, it's brilliant. And I've always, every time I've been to Minstergate Books, I've always found like a right nice edition of the Golden Bough or some Crowley something. I got my first Rollo Ahmed book, The Black Art, from there, and it's not an occult bookshop, but there's just something magical about it, and I absolutely love that shop. Arthur Sleep has asked me what movies and TV things scared me as a kid. I was a very scared kid. I was just scared of ghosts round every corner. Looking back, my gran had an old terrace house in Ripon in North Yorkshire, and there were some very strange things that happened there that I didn't understand when I was very little. And I don't know if it was my childhood brain or looking back, it's augmented memories, but there was some very unexplainable things that frightened me there. So I was very scared of all sorts of stuff. The theme music to the Book Tower had me cowering. I mean, there's the obvious one. There's the 70s Doctor Who. You know, people talk about behind the sofa. There was enough room for me to crawl behind the sofa, terrified, and my mum would say like, we're going to turn this off, this is too scary for you, and it was like, no, I want to know what happens, but I just can't be unhidden watching Doctor Who. Public information films, rabies, as I've said before on this channel. Was it Donald Pleasant's I Am the Spirit of Dark and Lonely Water? Like, that whole era of there are horrors coming to get you, and nuclear horrors as well. The threat of a nuclear attack scared me, which would scare anyone, but I remember like being prepped and doing some kind of drills in like infant school about like getting under tables and stuff. So that was quite scary. And that was obviously stuff on TV. The first film I remember watching when I was in on my own was Curse of the Crimson Altar, which, that absolutely terrified me. I thought it was just like satanic and evil, but there was some little spark at the back of my brain going, I'm frightened, but I flipping love it. And then another terrifying TV staple in the early 80s was Crime Watch. And it always seemed to be on the same night when my mum and dad would go to the pub. Which happened a lot back then. Like, you make sure your kids are alright, you lock the door, you go to the pub. Done. And my mum and dad would always say, no watching scary stuff when we've gone. And be like, no, honestly, I'm not gonna. I'm just going to read some books and then go to bed. And as soon as they're gone, like, Crime Watch on. And I always remember one when I was dead wee. And I'm not like belittling what happened. Someone was killed, and I'm not belittling that. It's just really stuck with me. It was a lady that had gone missing in a northern city. I can't even remember the city. And it was the reveal of kind of almost like what happened. So I can't even remember who hosted it back then, but they said like they found this lady's body in assorted locations in black plastic bin bags around the city. And it's just like that. Oh, they found her. Oh my God, she's in bits, in bin bags. And I don't know if kids get it now, but when I was a kid, like things like murderers and stranglers and stuff like that were kind of scary. You know, someone with black gloves on coming towards you like that. Maybe that's why I love giallo movies so much, because that's always like a black gloved stabber or strangler. And then, obviously, things like Sapphire and Steel scared me. The dude with the smooth face stood on the stairs. He haunted me for a long time, but I was a little tiny bit older by then. But Doctor Who's always terrified me. Definitely. Mondasian asks about what Holy Grails I've got. What am I still hunting for? And there's only a couple. I've been quite lucky since I've been doing this channel, because I've found literally a couple of my Grails that have been really hard to find, like Black Magic Today by June Johns, and is it Piccolo or Puffin Book of Charms and Spells with the little Yoda, with the Elizabethan duck with the little Yoda. I'd never found that, and I'd kind of seen it on these websites for like, look at this crazy book cover. As far as ones that I still haven't got, I'm looking for a copy of The Farm by Richard Haig. I've got The City. I'd love The Farm. That was Lawrence James, and it's about some killer pigs. Lawrence James wrote some mad sleazy novels, definitely. And a lot of the time, it's kind of 150 to 300 pounds. Honestly, I don't think that many people are going to pay that for that book. But I'm very patient, and I always tell people, be patient. If there's something you want, if there's a book you're after, more than likely one of them will turn up eventually. You might just have to sit and wait a couple of years, longer than a couple of years, but one will pop up eventually for a couple of quid. The other one I really want, which is almost like the key weird trash horror paperback to get, is John Christopher's The Little People, but with the little swastika goblins with whips on the cover. That's so... I think that's probably one of the... Other than like Ian Fleming Bond books and stuff like that, I think that's maybe one of the most collectible paperbacks there is. Especially in horror. That's like an iconic book. And I've never even found it for sale and never been able to afford it. Like with The Farm, I've seen it for 300 quid. And it's like, right, there's no way I'm spending 300 quid on that, if I had a spare 300 quid or not. But I've never even seen a copy of The Little People, that particular edition, for sale anywhere. And so I'm guessing if one ever does come up, it's probably going to be super expensive. Cup and Keiko asks me, is it true I once tried to destroy Saturn? You humans. I mean, you YouTube viewers. No, that's just a vicious rumour. And Wombat1238, hello, asks, what do my parents think of my collection and my channel? My mum and dad are quite polarised when it comes to books. My dad's idea of a bedtime read is genuinely the Screwfix Direct catalogue. He'll look at hardware that he may wish to purchase and put in little jars in his garage and never really use, but he's got just in case he ever needs it. He's not really that into reading, even though he was when I was a kid, when he did a lot of night shifts and he used to read a lot of trashy horror. I'd see it on the kitchen table. That's one of the things that set me off. And another thing that set me off is my mum's passion for books. my mum's an avid reader. She always has been. And it's kind of weird. The books that she keeps on a shelf are a little bit more acceptable to show off when people come round and they go, oh, you got a bookcase, what's on your bookcase? Oh, they're quite highfalutin books. But she loves murder and darkness and misery and torture, and seriously, there's two things that my mum always read. One of it's anything about murderers and killers, either in fiction or true life. And the more lurid and grisly, the more she seemed to love it. And she also had a fixation with okay, it's a thing that isn't really around anymore, and that's a good thing. But people with additional needs, physical additional needs, that were maybe exhibited in a previous age, and I'm not saying that's okay, but my mum was fascinated by that world and all the people that existed, specifically the Elephant Man. So yeah, growing up, I did read a lot of this stuff about 19th and 20th century people with additional needs that were exhibited. But it was fascinating as a kid growing up reading all that. That was absolutely fascinating. And then that was tempered with books about Jack the Ripper and Dennis Nielsen and John George Haig. And it kind of... My mum's responsible. I honestly think... Now, my mum is a wonderful, softly spoken, elderly lady who's been a teacher most of her life, who is wholesome to the nth degree, but she garnered this little festering darkness of misery and depravity in my brain when I was a kid. So when they do come round, they... More often than not, my mum will have a little rummage and borrow something. I do read a bit of true crime. I read a lot of Jack the Ripper stuff, and I do like kind of British criminal cases. So yeah, my mum tends to nick me books. As far as what they think to my YouTube channel, they're both in their 80s, and things online don't really exist for them in the same way that they do for people younger than that, bless them. So I tried to explain to them when I was doing my Sunday story what it was, and they were just like, so are you on telly? I'm like, no, it's not telly. But you're on the internet doing stories. Why are you doing that? And so they don't really have a lot of interest in YouTube. I don't think they've ever been on YouTube just to view things. But yeah, book-wise, they, in their own little way, they've both influenced my love of all things dark and macabre, which I will be eternally grateful to them for. So thank you for watching, guys. I'm going to leave it there because I don't want it to be too long. Thank you for sticking with me for a year. And if you're one of the subscribers that I had right at the start, I value your input so much. And if you're one of my subscribers that's literally just found my channel like a week ago, thank you, and I value your input, and I look forward to what we're going to discuss in the future and how this channel is going to progress and directions we're going to go in chatting about fiction and books and other lovely macabre things. So thank you, guys. You stay safe, and I'll see you lovely lot in the next video.